The stagecoach jolted as its wheels struck another rut in the long, dry road, and Clara gripped the edge of her seat with trembling fingers, her nails digging into the worn wood as though she could steady not only the carriage but the storm inside her chest. The wild mix of fear, grief, and fragile hope that had haunted her since she boarded the coach in Street Louis and set her face toward a future that felt more like a sentence than a promise outside. The endless prairie stretched in every direction, a sea of golden grass rippling in the hot wind beneath the sky so wide it made her dizzy to look upon, and though other passengers came and went at the stops along the way, she had long since become the lone traveler on this last stretch westward, left to her thoughts and the ache of solitude, the kind that made her wonder if she had done something foolish, something irreparable, by answering the advertisement of a man she had never met, a cowboy whose words on paper had seemed plain but steady, offering her shelter and companionship in exchange for the bond of marriage, though she could not help but hear her late father's voice whispering that a woman of sense never threw her lot to strangers, that desperation was a poor counselor, but desperation had been her only companion after his death, when the creditors came, when the house was sold, when she found herself with nothing but the clothes on her back and a satchel of keepsakes. And it was in that bleak hour that she had opened the newspaper and found the small notice tucked between advertisements for farm tools and patent medicines, the words simple yet strangely kind: rancher in Wyoming Territory seeks respectable women of good character for marriage, room, board, and partnership offered. No fortune required, she had written back in shaky hand, never expecting a reply, yet one had come, and though brief, it carried the steady cadence of a man who worked with his hands and spoke only when there was need. His name was James McGraw. He owned land outside a town called Willow Creek. He was 35. He valued honesty. He did not drink to excess, and he sought a wife not for frivolity but for building a life together. And if she came, he would meet her at the stage depot when the 1st of September sun was high. Now that day had arrived, and Clara's heart beat louder with every turn of the coach wheels, each mile bringing her closer to a man she had never seen and a life she could not yet picture, and she pressed her handkerchief to her face to hide the tears that had begun again, unbidden, for though she had tried to be brave, the grief of what she had lost mingled with the terror of what lay ahead, and she felt smaller than she ever had, a speck in this vast country where no one knew her name or story. At last the town came into view, a scattering of wooden buildings rising from the dust, the main street lined with hitching posts and wagons, a smithy's clang echoing in the distance, the faint strains of a piano drifting from the saloon though it was barely past noon, and the stagecoach drew curious eyes as it trembled to a halt before the depot, children darting nearer to glimpse the passengers, women pausing with baskets in hand, and Clara, with her dress wrinkled from travel and her bonnet pulled low, felt the heat rise in her cheeks as she stepped down, clutching her satchel as if it contained not only her few possessions but her very soul. She glanced around, searching the faces for the one she had imagined countless times, yet how does one recognize a stranger from words on a page, and for a moment she feared he would not come at all, that she had been abandoned at the edge of the world, but then she saw him standing near the hitching post, tall and broad-shouldered, his hat pulled low against the sun, his shirt simple but clean, his stance that of a man accustomed to wide spaces and long work, and when his eyes met hers, steady and unreadable, she felt her breath catch. He did not rush forward with flowery greetings, nor did he scrutinize her as others might. Instead, he stepped with measured pace, removed his hat in a gesture of respect, and said in a voice rough with the cadence of the plains, "You must be Clara." She nodded, unable to find her voice, and in that silence her tears betrayed her, sliding hot down her cheeks despite her attempt to hold them back, and she murmured, "I'm sorry," but before she could fumble for an excuse, he shook his head, not in impatience but in something like understanding, and he said quietly, "You don't have to pretend with me." The words struck her more deeply than she expected, for she had worn masks for so long, smiling for creditors, nodding politely when neighbors whispered about her misfortune, even writing letters to this man with the tone of cheer she did not feel that to hear she need not pretend was like having a burden lifted from her shoulders, and though she still wept, the tears now were different, less of shame and more of release. James took her satchel from her hands with an ease that spoke not of possessiveness but of simple courtesy, and he nodded toward a wagon hitched nearby, its boards worn but well kept, the horse pawing the dirt in quiet patience, and he said, "It's a bit of a ride to the ranch. You'll want to rest after the journey." She followed him, each step uncertain, as though she were walking across a threshold that once crossed could not be undone, and as he helped her onto the wagon seat, his hand was firm and warm, grounding her in this strange new land. The wheels creaked as they set off down the road, leaving the small town behind, the prairie opening once more around them, and Clara found herself glancing at James from the corner of her eye, trying to gather something of his nature from his profile, the strong line of his jaw, the quiet set of his mouth, the way his gaze swept the horizon as though always alert for storm or straying cattle. He did not fill the silence with idle talk, and at first that unnerved her, for she feared he found her lacking, but after a while she realized the silence was not heavy but companionable, and though words were few, his presence was steady, as though he meant exactly what he had said. She need not pretend. The road stretched on, the sun beat down, and Clara let herself breathe, the rhythm of the wagon lulling her, the scent of sagebrush and dust filling her senses, and for the first time since her father's death she felt that perhaps she was not adrift after all, but anchored, however tenuously, to this man who had chosen her not for wealth nor beauty but simply to build a life, and though fear still lingered, hope, faint but real, began to stir within her heart.